Okay, so 10 reasons why people can be poor. Number one is you live in a country that's in the midst of a war. So it's beyond your control. I'm thinking people who live in Palestine, people who live in Ukraine, or maybe the other 50 countries that are experiencing war. That can really affect your financial life. Maybe you live in a country that as a whole is poor, has poor infrastructure, a poor political system, poor resources. There's 190 countries in the world. They rate all the countries. The United States is, you see, 182. There's 8 nations where people do better financially than people in the United States. But about half the countries make less than $12,000 a year. And you see the poorest nation only makes $455 a year, the people. It's like $1 a day. And so you could be living in one of those countries and beyond your control, it will be very hard to financially do well. Lack of good education. So this is interesting. This is for people that live in the United States. And I notice, I call it this, like, these are good figures, that there's a doubling that occurs. So if you don't finish high school, you're going to make about $20,000 a year. You finish high school, you're going to make about $40,000 a year. You go to college or trade school, you're roughly going to make $80,000 a year. So it like doubles, 20, 40, 80. And then if you get a professional degree or go further education, it's not quite doubling, but it's heading there. You're 100,000 and plus. So education is very important. And I know often young people, well, should I get further education or I have enough after high school? But I would think through that a little bit. Debt traps. There are some people that just, they've maxed out their credit cards buying clothes, and they get a car they can't afford, a house they can't afford, and they get themselves trapped. And it's very hard to financially get ahead. Relationship issues that lead to divorce. If you get divorced, your finances definitely can take a major hit. And there's all kinds of reasons behind that, but bad timing, number 6, in jobs and layoffs. So you can't find a job, and so you wind up going through your personal finances. Robin and I had this couple. And I have seen this repeated, including here. I call it just bad timing. I can't say bad luck, as that doesn't sound Christian. But this man, and they had like 3 or 4 kids, he would get a job, start kind of at the bottom, and over the next 3-4 years, he'd work himself up, and he'd finally say, hey, Pastor Joe, I'm finally making a good living, and I got benefits, and I've got a 401, and then the company would be sold or go bankrupt or go under, layoffs, and outside his control, and he would lose his job. And he'd get unemployment, and then they'd go through all of their savings, their 401, and then he'd get another job. And same thing, start at the bottom, work his way up after like 4 years. He's finally, hey, Pastor Joe, we finally got to a place of financial blessing, and then the job goes under, it gets bought, it gets sold. And I'm telling you, it happened to this family. I was like, I've never seen someone pick 4 or 5 wrong jobs that they seem like good companies, they seem like good pay, and every time he just about makes it, it closes down. Everyone with me? I've since discovered that happens up here too, by the way. Personal and behavioral issues. So 38% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. They trap themselves. By the way, even people that make like $500,000 a year, 20% of them live paycheck to paycheck. They trap themselves by buying a house that's too big for what they really can afford, and buying a car the fancy car instead of the smaller car, and borrowing. They overdo it with bills. Cost of living keeps going up faster than wages. Renting versus owning a house. In the short run, renting may seem to be a better financial situation, But in the long run, if you're not buying a house that's appreciating, in the long run, the renters lose. Renters lose. Because the house actually becomes probably the most important asset 80% of people have. Being a single parent can be very difficult to financially get ahead.